notes that we're going to be taking today is on elaboration. So again, pause, write down what we're going to be, the definition we're using for elaboration throughout the year. Okay, so elaboration. The reason why we're talking about elaboration today is because you got your monkey's paw analysis paragraph back, and 99% of us really need to work on this idea of elaboration. And just so we're clear, elaboration happens after your support in a CSE. So if we have claim support, elaborate. You may know it as claim support explain, but here at Cavallaro we like to say elaborate because we think that we get some better thinking from you if we ask you to elaborate versus just explain. So in order to elaborate, as it says here, you have to bring new ideas to the text. So we're done just talking about the text in our writing. We're going to go into analysis, like I said in class a couple days ago. So I'm going to show you some examples of what it means to elaborate, but first I would like you to, if you haven't already, go to Google Classroom and unsubmit. Okay, I'm going to show you real quick with first period. So unsubmit your analysis paragraph for the monkey's paw. And after you unsubmit it, you're going to see probably a lot of comments from me. I just want you to read those comments, internalize them. I want you to understand them, ask me if you have questions, and then no need to turn it back in. If you turned it in by the due date, I've already got the grade for you in the grade book. So it's up to you if you want to turn it back in, but it won't bother me if you don't. Okay, so pause, do that, read the comments, and then turn it back in or don't. So you should have a clear understanding of how you could have improved your paragraph. I'm going to show you an example of what one student did, and this is what most students did, which is why I'm showing it to you. And there are no names on this example, and I don't even remember which student I took it from. Okay, so here we go. He foreshadows moments in the story where bad things happen, but I'm warning you, you won't like the consequences. That quote from the story is evidence that shows that by using foreshadowing, the author creates a suspenseful environment in the story. Okay, so the reason why I have these two sections highlighted are because this is supposed to be the explain portion of the CSE. However, I'm not getting much of an explanation and I'm not getting much of an elaboration. If you'll notice in the yellow section here, the person says, so that quote from the story is evidence that shows that by using foreshadowing, the author creates a suspenseful environment for the story. So I already know this. I already know that foreshadowing creates suspense. I literally told you that, right? So I don't need you to tell me that again. I need you to tell me how this quote is foreshadowing. What about this quote is hinting that something is about to happen? That's the point. If you hear meowing, those are my cats. Okay, so this orange part here, so this creates suspense by keeping the reader alert and ready for something bad to happen because of the foreshadowing. So basically it said the same thing as it said in the yellow highlighted section, but just in a different way. So again, I'm not learning anything new that I didn't already know. And the point with elaboration is to bring your own ideas, new ideas to the text to make your reader more interested, okay, and help them learn more. So here's what this student could have done in order to elaborate and make their CSE stronger. So I'm going to go ahead and read it and I'll explain why this is elaboration. So when Morris says, but I'm warning you, you won't like the consequences, Jacobs foreshadows the negative effects of the paw by using words such as warning and consequences. Okay, let's pause there. First of all, I know I'm missing a quotation mark before consequences. That's okay. So the reason why this is an elaboration is because I'm picking up on the word choice that the author is using and I'm analyzing that word choice. I go on to say that these words make me think that Morris has had a bad experience with the paw. So I'm specifically focusing on the quote and saying why that quote seems to be hinting to me that something's not right with this paw. Okay, so I'm picking out words, warning, consequences, and I'm saying what these words make me feel like. This is my own interpretation. It's new information that I'm giving my reader. All right, so these words make me think that Morris has had a bad experience with the paw, which builds anxiety for me as a reader now that the whites are using it. So I hope you see the difference between those two, the previous one and this one, which I consider elaboration. We're going to talk a lot more about elaboration this year, so if you're still feeling a little fuzzy, don't worry. It's only the second week of school. So one more problem that I saw in a lot of CSEs, which is why I'm bringing it up here, is the technique to develop suspense. All right, so this is somebody's claim, and while this is true, I'll talk where they went wrong. So W.W. Jacobs, the author of The Monkey's Paw, creates suspense by using magic, wishes, greed, and karma, which adds to the uneasy atmosphere. Okay, like that's a beautiful sentence, but the thing is it's not a technique that all authors can use to develop suspense. So if I'm writing a suspense story and I read this and I think, oh, okay, I need to include wishes, greed, and karma in order to create suspense, that's not necessarily true. I could be writing about basketball, a suspenseful basketball story, and I wouldn't have anything that has to do with wishes or magic in my basketball story. So while this is very true for The Monkey's Paw, it's not a technique that all authors use. Okay, so that's why we talked about foreshadowing as a class last week. So foreshadowing, cliffhangers, tone, mood, word choice, these are all things that authors can use across the board no matter what to create suspense in their stories. So if you happen to be a little too specific on how the author created suspense, just back up a little bit. And again, we are focusing on foreshadowing. That's what I did ask for. All right, so moving on. This is where you are going to need your notebook again. And I want you to flip to the section where we were taking notes on The Monkey's Paw. If you remember, we gathered some evidence of foreshadowing. And I want you to go to that section and I want you to write, let's see, I'll just type it right here. So I want you to write foghorn pre-reading context. Okay, right under the next available section, or in the next available section after your Monkey's Paw notes. So we're starting a new story tomorrow. I hope that you are able to be in class for that. If not, the text is online, so I'll have a lesson up and it's pretty easy to get caught up with this story. So The Foghorn by Ray Bradbury is what we're reading, and we're going to build some context, which means information that's going to help us understand the story better. Background knowledge, basically. So in your notebook, I would like you to record step 1, 2, 3, and 4. As we look at a series of 3 pictures, you are going to describe the mood of the picture in step 1. Remember, mood is how you feel. How does the picture make you feel as a viewer? Okay, step 2 is you're simply going to record the details that you see in the picture. So what observations do you have? What do you see? If you were in the picture itself, let's think about our 5 senses. What would you smell? What would you hear? Taste, touch? So basically just details in terms of your senses. Step 3 is to describe 1 to 2 potential suspense elements that could take place there. Okay, so this one might be a little more confusing because I explained it in class and you might be like, what? I don't know what that is. So these are our 5 suspense elements, okay, just more ways that authors can create suspense. There are so many. And these are the ones that we're focusing on for today. So with each picture that we look at, what I want you to do is to simply elaborate on that picture and decide which one seems like it would fit best with one of these. So if you're thinking of a prospective danger, that means that danger could possibly happen. It could mean that maybe one of them kind of seems dark and alone. So you might think, oh, well, if you're alone in a dark place, there is a prospect, a possibility of danger. So that would be for the third one, and you'll have to explain to me why you chose that specific element. Okay, the second one, an actual immediate danger, that means just that danger is just around the corner. The person, or yeah, I guess the person, right, in the picture, if there was one, might get hurt right away, might die, you never know, might have just something bad happen to them, and it's going to be soon. Okay, the third step, an unwanted confrontation. So this just means that something happened, probably with another person, but I included animals in my example in class. So something happened with another person where they were confronted. And confronted means that someone kind of called you out. or possibly someone did something to you that you were not happy with. So the examples I gave was someone may have come up to you and said, hey, I heard you were talking about me. And you probably wouldn't want to hear that and you wouldn't want to be in that situation. So that would be an unwanted confrontation. Another unwanted confrontation would be if someone walks up to you and says, hey, give me your wallet and your cell phone. They confront you and they steal your things. Okay, my third example, this had to do with an animal. We are looking at pictures of lighthouses because that's what our story is about. So in some of them, maybe an unwanted confrontation is if a seagull attacks you. Okay, again, it's kind of silly, it's an animal, but at the same time, could cause suspense, you never know. So 4 and 5 are pretty self-explanatory. If any of these pictures seems like it would work well with an old fear that someone had or a life crisis. Not going to really explain those. Okay, step 4, final step. So when you're looking at these pictures, you're going to decide which one seems like it would work best for a scary story, suspenseful, happy, maybe romance, action, drama. So just think of all those different genres of movies or stories that you've read and watched before and think which one of these pictures kind of fits that specific genre. Okay, so we're doing this in our notebooks. Feel free to write in incomplete sentences, just some quick brainstorming notes. We're going to take a look at 3. I have a lot more than 3 pictures, but we'll just take a look at 3. So here's the first one. Okay, and remember for step 1, you are thinking about mood. So mood is how you feel. And you might not have strong emotions towards these pictures, and that's okay, but I want you to try to think about what is this picture supposed to make you feel like? Okay, does it make you feel calm, eerie, happy, excited, scared maybe? Okay, the second step is asking you to think about details. So I want you to pretend that you are in this situation. You're right next to the lighthouse, and you are kind of reflecting on your 5 senses. So what do you see? What do you hear? Do you hear the waves crashing? There's some waves down there. What do you smell? Taste, possibly salt water. So I'll give you a second to go ahead and think through that. Okay, the third step is an element of suspense. So you're looking at this picture and there's not much going on besides a very bright lighthouse. But you are going to elaborate on what you see. You are going to bring new ideas to the picture as we would with writing. So let's see, trying to think of what some students have said for their element of danger ideas. Okay, elements of suspense. So if you see these houses here, for example, there are some little houses. Someone said that, oh, I bet there is, maybe like an older couple in there and they are arguing, and maybe they're going through an unwanted confrontation or they're having a life crisis. So those are a couple examples. I'm just elaborating on what I see, and I'm using some creative ideas, kind of making some things up that seem like it could fit the situation. So I'd like you to do the same. Feel free to be creative. And the last step is, let's see, yes, so what type of genre of story would this picture work best for? Okay, so I'm not going to talk you through the next 2. I'm just going to show them to you. You can pause it and then do